Okay, well, again, thanks everybody for being here today. I guess we'll get going. So, owning a rental unit is like owning a boat. They say that the happiest days of your life are going to be the day that you buy it and the day that you sell it. Let's face it, the dream of owning investment property is great, but the implementation of that dream can be a nightmare. So, we've created a platform that allows the landlord to get the efficiency of property management without having to fork over 10% of their rent receipts. How do we do that? Well, the platform allows the landlord to manage those two critical relationships, the contractor and the tenants. Let's look at these. The landlord-tenant relationship is actually pretty simple. In exchange for the home to rent, uh, we ask the tenants to pay, rent money in exchange to live in that home. Now, uh, money isn't moving on the old highways that it used to. More and more, it's moving on the phone. So we say to the landlords, here's a way for you to collect rent money on the phone. Now, these landlords still have one part of the bargain to keep. They have to maintain the property. And so we say, here's a plumber, here's an electrician. You need a handyman to take care of that issue. Primarily, the platform takes the shape of three mobile apps: the landlord app, the contractor app, and the tenant app. Now, who are these landlords? Well, first, in a nutshell, it gets a little bit complicated, but what are we providing? For landlords, they need to control their investment, and so for them, we provide a system. The contractors, we provide access for them to a pool of customers that they may not otherwise know when their services are needed. And then tenants, well, to be honest, they just want to live their lives. Now, these landlords, who are they? We're looking at the current do-it-yourself landlord, somebody that has already decided against using a property management firm, and somebody with small units in their portfolio. By way of comparison, there's actually about, in St. Louis City alone, there's about 35,000 units that fall into this category. Um, these properties, we tend to have in our minds the high rises, the townhome complexes that they keep on building out in Lake St. Louis. Uh, but actually, it's the single family homes, it's the duplexes, the triplexes, the quads. These actually make up over half and growing of all available. Manager is typically even the same person that owns it, and this is what we call, the do-it-yourself landlord. But even though they're do-it-yourself, they still want to be sophisticated. And besides our own market research, there's been industry surveys, and a strong majority of landlords and tenants are asking for what, at this point, we consider pretty basic tools. And we have these tools ready to go for them. This target market is price conscious. Put yourself in their shoes for a minute. This is supposed to be a passive investment. It's supposed to be easy money. But out of the rent that you collect, you still have to pay taxes. You still have to pay mortgage, pay utilities. And on top of that, there's annual maintenance costs. Typically, the rule of thumb is about 1.5 times 1 month's rent you end up paying. Contractor marketplaces out there, of course, and they're doing quite well, but there's nothing to keep users on it. In contrast, Door has a certain stickiness to it, since tenants are paying rent every month and they're going to be getting on there to file their work orders. And so what we call the rental ecosystem will just keep on churning. Now, we call it an ecosystem because they all need each other. In fact, even though we haven't promoted the Door Contractor app at all yet, even with beta testers, we're already getting downloads there. Now, as I kind of mentioned, it is live. We're just working with landlords that we know to make sure everything is working the way it should. The last thing that I want to do is get in between a landlord and his rent money or her rent money. Surprisingly, we're still getting downloads there from outside of that pool. We plan to expand, through our network, working with referral partners, CPAs, real estate brokers, local investment clubs over the next 6 months. Then we're actually going to be moving to direct mail, even though direct mail is historically whitewashed as ineffective. We know exactly the addresses of the properties that we're looking at, and so we're in a different boat. Then as we really get up to speed, we're going to be targeting the sort of do-it-yourself repair videos that you maybe have seen on YouTube, contractors, as well as landlords actually do pay attention to these. And so, and nobody is targeting them for ads. So we do plan on hitting those, as well as some of like the investment influencers that are out there, like Bigger Pockets, for example. Pretty sure this strategy is going to be effective because we've been listening to each of our stakeholders. Actually, I've been listening for quite a long time. In college, I was an RA, and I always say that if you want to learn the unadulterated perspective of the tenant, be an RA. Immediately after college, I began working for a real estate developer that did its own property management. And so there I learned firsthand the perspective of the landlord from the buildings that I managed. And then actually an architect in New York City wanted to develop those same kinds of buildings, the luxury loft apartments out of old warehouses. And so he hired me to help run his design and build firm. If you don't know the design and build business model, it's putting together the package of all of the different trades that are needed to build out a home. And so as you can imagine, this is how Door was born. So we're just at the beginning. There's kind of a long road ahead, of course. But again, thank you all for being here, and love to open it up to any questions.
That was pretty interesting. Are you interested in meeting with landlords and like management companies?
Yeah, definitely landlords. The management companies, they already have some pretty sophisticated tools that are available to them. Actually, the software that's out there for management companies is very good, but they actually don't want to work with the little guys. And so that's why we're doing what we are doing for the do-it-yourself landlords.
Okay, so it's more do-it-yourself than other things. Because I got some connections with the community development corporations, and after they rehab some of these 4-family units, they become the landlord. So I don't know if your software could help them, because their main job isn't being a landlord, it's rehabbing houses.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, those connections would be great, obviously. Thank you, Mary.
I didn't see any contact information for you on your last slide.
Oh, I'm sorry. The easiest one is jake@door.club.
Okay. You mentioned in your longer term plan, creating some video content for DIYers. I apologize too, because I got kicked off with my internet and had to hop back on. Did you mention any sort of content creation shorter term, and how much focus are you going to give towards that sort of marketing strategy?
Yeah, on social media, specifically Twitter, we are going to be doing some content creation for sure. That's going to be an important part of our sort of getting the word out there. At the beginning, we definitely want to be focusing more on finding the right product market fit. So sort of that's the long-term plan, is sort of the content creation for YouTube and things like that, where it's maybe a short advertisement in front of those repair videos.
Well, yeah, just as we're all seeing with existing quarantine right now, I know tons and tons of companies, big and small, are just shifting towards in-house media production. Just like that's a much more pressing right now than ever before, maybe, of just having to create content, get your own stuff out there, and pivot towards more media production than actual product development at this point.
Sure, sure, yeah. Obviously, we all know there's a lot of noise out there, and so you have to find some way to cut through the noise.
All right. Any other questions out there? If so, just remember to unmute your mic and speak up. There's not enough of us here that if we're talking over each other, it's okay. All right. Our typical question is, what can our community do for you? We're in a virtual community here now, but same connections still exist. What can we do to help you along right now?
Yeah, well, I was thinking a lot about that before. My natural thing was kind of what Mary was alluding to. If you happen to know a small landlord or even a tenant that is in that situation and they're still sending a check every month, let them know about the service. But I was thinking, based kind of on the situation that we're in now, sort of the social mission of Door is like bringing that home aspect to wherever people are living, whether it's a rental property or not. And so I was thinking that, like, in this time, maybe what everybody could do is just try to do that a little bit, whether it's in like your own home or, call your grandma, or, the nursing homes are complete isolation. They can't even eat with each other. Like, call one up, get the name and room number for somebody, write them a letter. Like, this would be a great way to further the mission of Door.
Yeah. Are you in contact with a lot of landlords who are having to respond, maybe, suspend their month's rent collection? Just since you have personal connections there, what are you seeing out there as ways that people are helping one another, tenant landlord relationships here?
Yeah, I think the landlords I've been in contact with, they are cognizant of the fact that people's incomes are either in question or in some cases already like gone. They're very cognizant of that fact. I've seen some interesting things out there, even from landlords, hey, like, let's just extend, for every month that, we're in this situation where you can't go into work or whatever, we'll just extend the lease that much. They'd rather have like a solid tenant than, lose a good tenant. And so some creative solutions. There's a lot of questions obviously out there with the stimulus package and, how soon is this money going to come? Obviously the amount is, not really that much. And so how much of a difference is it going to do, in the long term with all the expenses that people have, besides rent. But I was happy to hear some of the landlords are aware of that, and trying to manage that situation, given the other constraints that they have, like they still have to pay their mortgage and what have you. The mortgage companies aren't gonna, just say, oh, no problem, don't worry about the mortgage payment.
Yeah, even just having online rent collection, separates that need for the physical transaction. We could all use more connections, but right now also is anything not passing hands is a good call. So you're ahead on that.
It occurs to me there are a lot of small landlords in North City and some of those neighborhoods, which means that if you get a story about you in your app in the American, you might tap a market you haven't talked to yet.
Yeah, no, that's very interesting and true. It might be a good time to get more of a story out there, I suppose.
Yeah.
What I was thinking
It's
is
a
at
big
least in
deal
this,
in the community is trying to build wealth, and becoming a landlord and doing do-it-yourself rehabbing buildings is something that people are trying to get involved with. So, and it sounds like your app could really be helpful.
absolutely. Great point, Mary.
All right. Any other questions out there? And hey, Ricky, I saw you join here.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, Mickey.
I'm just trying to be a homeschool mom. I haven't gotten it done just yet.
We totally understand. Not easy.
It's
No, but
not
thank
easy.
you, Dan, so much for, I mean, I've been on for maybe a couple, 5 minutes, but I heard a couple of comments, and I just appreciate you, your willingness to do it. And I know you wanted to do it face-to-face, but we really appreciate it. This has been a labor of love for everybody, and the experience has been awesome, and I think the turnout has too. So I never thought we would, get this kind of turnout, so I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
No problem, Ricky. Thanks for having me. Thanks for being the organizer.
Yeah, thank
Along
you,
with
Jake.
BJ, of course.
No, thank you. You did this super last minute, and let's hope that it keeps growing week to week, and that we'll get back in person here soon.
Right.
Hope so.
And just-
Definitely hope
just
so.
And just to keep doing the networking thing, because that's what we do at 1 Million Cops and Venture Cafe and those other things, we can use the chat function to share some contact information so that we can maybe contact each other offline. That's another possibility here. So I see a lot of names here that I haven't met before, and I would love to have anybody reach out and just have a conversation, even if it's just virtual.
Thanks, Mary. That's a great
Okay.
idea. So if everybody could just use a chat function, put your name and some kind of contact information, that would be so great.
Yeah, and any other feedback on how we're organizing virtual 1 Million Cups is helpful right now. We're just shooting from the hip, getting it going. All right, thanks again, and have a good Wednesday. Have a good rest of your week, and see you next week.
Thanks,
Have a good one.
BJ.
I'll talk with you soon,
Bye.
everybody. Talk with you, BJ. I'll call you later.
All right. See ya.
Okay.